All right, so today we are talking about how can you set boundaries at work, why it's important, how you do it, and then how to deal with the aftermath of the uncomfortable feelings or the discomfort that comes or the reactions you get from other people when you set those boundaries. So welcome. Thanks for being here. This is Shannon from Shine Bright Coaching, and we created this channel to offer tips and resources and tools to help you find more fulfillment from your career. So thanks for being here. Okay, so why is it important to set boundaries at work? Well, after 11 years of working with people and specifically doing career coaching, I see over and over and over again people who are burned out, who are overwhelmed, who have no work-life balance, who are checking emails at all times of day, who say yes to everything that's being asked of them, to the point where they're making themselves sick. They're miserable. They've lost any sort of joy or fulfillment from maybe a job that in the beginning they really appreciated. They feel resentful, like they're being taken advantage of, and it really just blocks your ability to show up fully, to access your potential, to do your best work, and to also feel good and energized by the work that you're doing. Everyone says, oh, work is always going to be stressful. And that's true, but it doesn't mean that you have to be exhausted and depleted and burned out from your job. There might be times when maybe a big project or a big deadline's happening where that may, come into play. But if you're consistently feeling exhausted, that's a problem. And it's going to, if it's not addressed, make you sick and, cause, at first it's just mental stress, but then that turns into, somatic symptoms as well. So headaches and body aches and, can turn into more serious symptoms as well. So it's really serious. And a lot of times I talk to people and they think, well, it's just this job or this particular boss or this company culture. And, if I just get a new job, then, all my issues will be, gone. And sometimes that's true. And oftentimes, there could be a toxic work environment or a toxic boss or a hustle culture that really doesn't support people having boundaries, which can exacerbate a situation. And that's something that you want to get out of. And, absolutely, a healthier culture would make a difference, or a more, a boss with higher EQ, who also values work-life balance would make a huge difference. But what I see over and over again is that oftentimes the people who are struggling the most with a lack of boundaries, whether that's people pleasing or, not having any, boundaries between work and life, or just saying yes to everything that's asked or every project that's presented, or really struggling to say no, that they bring those habits with them to the next job, to the next place they go. And so even though maybe the culture's healthier and it's not spiking it or triggering it to the same degree, if you haven't dealt with what is driving or causing you to be a people pleaser, or to have a lack of boundaries, or not know how to say no, or deal with the discomfort of maybe disappointing someone, then that is going to continue. And maybe at first at the new job, the novelty, it's all kind of feeling new and different, but it can wear off. And if all of a sudden you're showing up the same, even if the environment is different, you're going to recreate those same circumstances in the new job. So it's really important that you understand, why am I, not setting these boundaries? What's getting in my way? How do I set healthy boundaries? And then how do I deal with the discomfort of saying no or disappointing someone else? Because I think that's really at the key of a lot of this is the discomfort of disappointing people. Often the people who have a lack of boundaries really care about showing up, doing really good work, pleasing, achieving, being recognized externally for the work or their hustle or their, work ethic. And so a lot of their identity and their self-worth is wrapped up in other people giving that to them. And so by saying no, or not taking every project, or setting some healthy boundaries, there's a real fear that self-worth or your value is going to disappear along with that. And so we've got to dig into all this and chat about it and figure out how to solve it, what you can do, and some really clear steps you can take to start setting boundaries so you can feel better at work, so you can feel energized and enjoy your job and do your best work and take really good care of yourself too. Okay, here's the thing about boundaries is that those people who can set healthy boundaries at work are actually more respected, more productive, are more energized and happier at work. And I know this is counterintuitive because oftentimes I think what's driving the lack of boundaries is this need to please, this need to perform, a reliance on external validation, and a desire to not disappoint people. And it kind of starts to work, or not kind of, it actually starts to work against you. Because here's the thing, whether it's conscious or unconscious, when people sense that you don't have any boundaries, then they start to take advantage of you. They see you as a yes person, and so they don't feel bad about throwing things your way, or you working overtime, or you putting another project on your plate, or asking you to help them because they sense that you don't value your own time, that you don't respect yourself or your time. And so why should they? And it's not always ill-intended. Sometimes it is. Sometimes it's a, toxic culture, or a toxic boss, or a toxic colleague who's, really taking advantage of you in an intentional way, or trying to gaslight you. But oftentimes it's just like, well, so-and-so always says yes, so I'm going to keep throwing things to them, right? And so it's not up to other people to monitor what they're asking us to do or not do. It's up to you to be able to have a sense of what is your capability, what is your bandwidth, what's already on your plate, what can you say yes to, what are the healthy boundaries around your time, right? And when your workday ends, and what you're willing to respond to and when, these are up to you, right? Because only you can know where those boundaries lie. There isn't a hard and fast rule of like everyone should work 8 hours and no one should ever respond to emails after this time or work on the weekends. Healthy boundaries are actually not a wall. They're a fence, right? With a gate. And they're flexible. And so you can open and close them, or you can adjust them to a certain situation or a certain person. So it's about being able to have a sense of what works best for you, what allows you to be most productive, to bring your best self every day to work, to tap in your potential, to stay energized and fueled for the work and the goals that you have in front of you, rather than feeling depleted, exhausted, resentful. So ultimately, at the core of all of this is about self-worth, believing that you are worthy of, setting healthy boundaries, believing that you're worthy and valuable without other people telling you that you are, right? Believing that if you disappoint people, that your value doesn't also decrease in those moments. And that actually when people sense that you have boundaries, that you care for yourself and you care for your time and you're mindful and thoughtful about what you say yes to, guess what? They start respecting you too. They start to take a pause before they ask if you can do something. Right? They stop throwing things onto your plate because they remember that last time you said no, right? Or maybe they stop calling after hours, or they stop emailing you on the weekends because they know you don't respond, right? So there's actually, the counter effect that often people are expecting. They think they're going to be respected and liked more and appreciated more when they are saying yes to everything and they have no boundaries and they're people pleasing. But ultimately, people respect those who have healthy boundaries. So this is about you deciding that you're worth having healthy boundaries, right? And this is a bigger conversation than we, can get into in this video, but, doing the work to really value who you are and value your intrinsic worthiness that is not dependent on other people's approval or getting an A+, or a high five or your boss's approval. That doesn't mean that you can't be ambitious or that you can't really care about your work or want to do a good job or not appreciate, someone recognizing your work or seeing and valuing you. Those aren't bad things, but if you are reliant on those things that are external to you to prove your worth, to prove your value, that's when there's a slippery slope. That's when if you don't get the nod from the boss or the promotion or, the colleagues, giving you positive feedback and all of a sudden you're defeated, you're depleted. It's making you feel really uncomfortable and anxious because you haven't done the work to feel valuable and worthy within yourself. That's a slippery slope and a dangerous place to be because you're outsourcing your worthiness. And people are fickle. Some days they're into you and some days they're all on, thinking you're great and, doing a good job. And sometimes they're not paying attention, they're distracted, or they get annoyed. And so if you're on the roller coaster of like, how do they feel about me today, whether this is a boss or a colleague or whatnot, you're going to be exhausted. So this is about doing the work to really understand your value, your worthiness, to have a sense of what boundaries make sense for you and your life, and how to deal with the disappointment that might come with that. So first off, I want to talk about how do you know when it's time to set boundaries? So, the biggest clue is how are you feeling? If you are consistently feeling exhausted, resentful, depleted, if you would describe yourself in burnout mode, or you're wanting to quit and you're, scrolling job boards, trying to get out of your job constantly, or you're just exhausted in your free time or on your weekends, or you come home or you finish your workday and you're angry or upset and you take it out on the people you love, or you have no energy for your personal life or things outside of work, those are all clues that boundaries are probably not in place and it's time to start thinking about where to put some boundaries and how to start doing that work before your body starts telling you or screaming at you that it's sick or that it can't go on or that you're in full-on depletion burnout mode. All right, so how do you begin to set boundaries at work? Well, first off, like we said, it starts with really sitting with yourself and paying attention or taking some inventory of like, how are you feeling, right? So beginning to kind of pay attention to, am I just tired and stressed right now because we have a big project or there's a big deadline that we're working towards, or is this a consistent feeling? Am I using words like burnout? Am I taking things out on my family and friends? Am I not feeding myself outside of work? And am I feeling resentful and exhausted? Those are all some clues that, okay, some boundaries need to be put in place. Then it's about, kind of looking at where do the boundaries need to go, right? Is this about, how much work you're taking onto your plate, what you're saying yes to? Is it boundaries around time? I know a lot of people struggle with people just putting things on their calendar or scheduling them for meetings and they're just back to back to back and they have no time to actually like do their work. Is it about, emails and texts outside of work hours? Is it about actually separating, right? Turning off your computer, walking away from work and being present in your life. Where is the boundary needed? Where is it most affecting you or depleting you or exhausting you? So that's kind of the second step, is after paying attention to like, how am I feeling? How am I doing? If you're noticing the clues are in place that boundaries need to set, then taking a look at like, okay, where can I start? And then really boundaries are about learning how to say no. And no on its own can be a complete sentence. right? Oftentimes, I think, especially when we're starting to put in boundaries, we're feeling really uncomfortable, we're feeling really bad, we're, anticipating the person getting mad or angry or upset, and so we want to talk more and explain more and give more information. But really, it can be as simple as, I'm sorry, I can't do that, or my plate is already full, or I'm not going to be able to get to that today, or I can't this time, I'm sorry, or I'm not available, right? So it can be just really simple, short, to the point statements. If someone asks for more information, then you can, invite them into, I already have these few projects on my plate, my bandwidth is full, or I'm finding that when I respond to texts and emails at night, I'm taking away time from my family or my personal life, and it's really exhausting, and I want to be able to show up at work energized and fueled. And so I'm putting in some boundaries around when I respond to emails and texts so that I can show up at my best in my workday. Right? So making sure that, one, your responsibility is to know where the boundary needs to be, and then just being really clear and direct and kind. This isn't about, you don't have to get angry or make it, an uncomfortable conversation, but keep it short and sweet. And at first, people might, especially if you have a history of no boundaries or people pleasing, they might be a little taken aback or surprised, and maybe they might ask some questions. But what I find is oftentimes people are like, oh, okay, no biggie. I'll ask someone else, or I can figure it out, or, oh, I totally get it. Like, take care of you, right? And so I think the next step is being able to pay attention to, are you setting boundaries or attempting to set boundaries, and are they being respected? Right? So if you begin to start to say no, if you begin to kind of put some boundaries around your time, your energy, your work, when you're available, and people are understanding and they, work with you and they are supportive of that, then you're probably in a healthy work environment. And you're probably in an environment that is conducive to you and your growth and supporting you to be at your best. So that's a good sign. And it's good to flex those muscles of setting boundaries because, like I said earlier, sometimes we make assumptions that it's the organization or it's our boss or it's our colleagues. But if we're not practicing setting boundaries or vocalizing our needs or saying no when we need to, then it could just be us, right? It could just be old habits, old patterns. And like I said, you could get out of there and then start doing the same thing at a new company, right? Or with a new boss. So flexing this muscle and being able to see how people respond and if they're supportive to the boundaries you put in place allows you to see like, oh, actually, this is a place I could stay. It feels supportive. Or if you find that people are pushing back, or are bullying or gaslighting or are unsupportive of healthy boundaries, then that's a whole new conversation, right? So then you need to start to think about, okay, so, I'm doing the work of really, figuring out how to show up at my best, what boundaries need to be in place so that I can really do my best work and I can be energized and fueled. And if people are pushing back against that or not supporting that or getting angry with you, that's probably a clue that you're in a toxic work environment, right? Or you have a toxic boss or some toxic colleagues. And then you might want to think about, is this a place where I can stay and grow? Is this worth my health? Because at the end of the day, a lack of boundaries for, a consistent amount of time is going to lead to exhaustion, depletion, and it's on a road to burnout. And as I've said before, burnout has some really serious potential effects. And so this is really about your health, your physical health, your mental health, your well-being. And that is the absolute most important thing that you need to be thinking about. Because if those things aren't in place, then you can't work at all. You can't show up at all. And so those have to be in place. They have to be the main building blocks and foundation. And if you're in an environment where you're trying to take healthy steps, you're trying to be healthy about setting some boundaries, and you're not being supported in that, it might be time to think about leaving. Okay, the last piece about boundaries. So often the thing that people are most afraid of is disappointing others. And often it's the discomfort or anticipation of the disappointment that is even worse than the actual response from the other person. So part of setting boundaries and being able to get good at this, so you can be your healthiest, most productive, happy self at work, is to have some tools around how do you manage the discomfort that comes up when you anticipate saying no or setting a boundary, and then also the response. If maybe someone's disappointed, maybe they understand, but they're a little upset, or they push back a little bit. How do you take care of yourself in those moments? So one, I want you to recognize that people pleasing is a defense mechanism. So oftentimes this comes from way back when, for some reason, probably when you were little, at some point you learned that by saying yes, by performing, by achieving, by making the people around you happy or proud of you, that you could stay safe, or you could stay loved, or that you were valuable in those moments. And so part of this is about recognizing where this comes from and recognizing that it's attached to probably an old wound. And when I say wound, it doesn't always mean that it's this, really big traumatic event. It could just be something small, like realizing, oh, my parents give me more attention when I get good grades, or when I tell a joke, or when I do extra chores, or whatever it is. And so as a little person, it gets wired into your brain that you as yourself, aren't as worthy as the performing, achieving self. And so a pattern starts to emerge of like, oh, if I act in this way, then I get more love, I get more attention, I'm more worthy or valuable. And so then it starts to show up in all parts of our life. And this is going to look and feel different for each person. And so ultimately, when we're thinking about saying no or disappointing someone, it triggers that old wound that really, and I'm not trying to be dramatic, can sometimes feel like so scary, almost like death, or something that could really harm you because it's triggering your fight or flight response. Where when we're in fight or flight, we're in survival mode. Our unconscious is like, what do I need to survive in this moment because I might die? And I know that sounds really dramatic, but that's what's happening internally when we're thinking about breaking an old pattern that's connected to something that is a defense mechanism, or connected to an old wound. And so I just want to say that to give you some grace in terms of why it might be so hard or uncomfortable or scary. Usually it's something that's been with you for a really long time. So the key to being able to have these uncomfortable conversations, or muster the courage to say no or to set a boundary, is about how can you calm your nervous system? How can you help to center yourself, calm your nervous system, come back to the present moment when your nerves spike, when that old wound gets triggered and you start to have some stress or anxiety or nerves about an upcoming conversation, or in the aftermath of an uncomfortable conversation. So, there's so many different tools and techniques, but something that I've been sharing with a lot of my clients lately is the hand on the heart. And this can be something you can use when you're feeling stressed, in the aftermath of something uncomfortable or stressful, or as a preemptive exercise when you're anticipating something being scary or stressful, or your nerves are starting to spike. So what you can do is you can place one hand or both hands over your heart. And what this does is touch can activate the release of oxytocin. So by putting our hands over our heart, it releases oxytocin, which is our feel-good, calm down antidote to our stress hormone, which is cortisol, which spikes our heart rate and our blood pressure and causes us to feel stressed and anxiety and really uncomfortable. So placing your hands over your heart releases the oxytocin, and then you can close your eyes and start to take some deep breaths. And you can do this for about 20 to 30 seconds. I like to take in a breath of about 4 counts, So breathing in for 4, hold for 7, and then release for 8. Extending the release of the out breath is actually another way to calm the stress response, get you out of fight or flight, bring you back into the present moment. So placing the hands over the heart releases the oxytocin, starting to take some deep breaths, and then when you close your eyes, start to think about a time when you felt safe or loved or valued, and allow your body to kind of come back, to recenter, to reset. The oxytocin is our belonging, love, safety hormone, and then the breathing can calm our vagus nerve and connect and activate that in a positive way. And then thinking about a time when you felt safe, all of a sudden your body calms, right? The stress releases, you reset your nervous system, you get yourself out of fight or flight, your blood pressure releases, your heartbeat goes down, your blood pressure also goes down, and then all of a sudden you're present, you're back in your body, and you do this for about 20 to 30 seconds, and you may have to do this a few times or a few rounds of this, but this is a way of taking care of yourself, of being able to, in those moments, kind of be a caretaker for yourself, right? So again, rather than looking outward for your value and your worthiness, being able to offer that to yourself. And so maybe once the nervous system has calmed a little, you can say a few things like, you're safe, I am here, right? You're safe, I'm taking care of you, you're gonna be okay, you're worthy, you're valuable. So kind of giving yourself the affirmations, right, that you've been looking for externally, right? So calming the nervous system, coming back into your body, reset, and then give yourself some kind words, some affirmations, right? And this will help you to weather the stress response, the nerves, or the anxiety, either before the conversation or after the conversation. So practice this as many times as you need to. And this will help you to kind of, as you're building the muscle of learning how to set boundaries, it'll be a way for you to take care of yourself, to navigate the times of discomfort when it feels really hard or scary, or you really feel terrified in those moments. This is a way to kind of really take care of yourself so that you can build those muscles, and after a while, setting boundaries, knowing how to say no, taking good care of yourself will become more secondhand. It'll come more easily, and you can access your energy, your joy, your engagement, and your full self at work in a way that feels good to you because you have healthy boundaries in place. So good luck out there. I know it's not easy, but it's so worth it. So I hope you practice some of this. And if you like this video, there's more of them at our Shine Bright Career Coaching YouTube channel. So please like the video, comment below with any questions, and subscribe to our channel for more videos. So take care out there.